You're listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show, where wealth is empowering, purpose is crucial, and high vibes are non-negotiable. And now, here's your host, certified business coach and practical woo strategist, Sara J Loureiro.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Uplevel Your Online Business Show. I am Sarah, and today I am here with another podcast client date. So I'm here with my amazing client, Meg Driscoll. Meg, how are you? Why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hey, I'm doing well. Hi, everybody. I am a life coach. Been doing it for the last 7 years. I love it. Love helping people out, and I love to be here to ask some questions.
Yay, perfect. And I'm very excited for you, especially because, like you said, you've been in the space for a really long time. You've had a lot of success. So without further ado, Meg, what are your questions?
Well, I guess my first question, and kind of go piggyback because it's gonna. So when you got your first highest month, like how long did it take you to hit? And if there's a number, if you feel comfortable sharing, that's would be my first question.
Ooh, I love this. And I feel like this is very, it's a very subjective question too, right? So in terms of like highest month, what does highest month ultimately mean? And I think it meant different times to me in different places in my business. And I would say one of the very first times that I really felt like I made it was when I hit my first 7K month. And that's really interesting. I think that was back in like 2018. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh my God, I did it. I hit a
Yeah.
7K month, right? Like it felt really incredible. And it felt like, you feel like you're kind of on top of the world. And it resulted, the way that I got it essentially was um I journaled around it for months. And so
Mm.
I would say it probably took me about like 2 or 3 months. Usually it takes me around like 2 or 3 months once I journal around something that's like double or triple the income amount that I currently have in order to get there. So it takes a while in terms of getting yourself behind the belief of wanting to get to that month, and then also putting all of your strategy and your effort into creating that high month. Sometimes it doesn't have to take that long. I've seen it take like 1 month with some clients, but for me, generally speaking, that's kind of what it takes. And so that was the first time that I really proved to myself that not only I could do this, I mean, because before that, my very first big win was like someone online who didn't know that I existed in person signed up to work with me, right? So you know that
Yeah.
high. And so you
Yeah.
get through that high and you celebrate that high, and then you go to the next high, which is like, okay, well, now there's two people, or now I'm fully booked. And so each and every time you really have to expand yourself, and you really have to ask yourself, who am I becoming in order to get this thing that I really want? What is the version of myself that's there? What is she already doing? What does she have to let go of? And what did she have to grow into in order to get there? And sometimes it's going to take you a little bit longer because you're not an energetic match for it yet.
hmm What's one belief you had to completely unlearn to start hitting your higher month goals?
I like these money mindset questions, Meg. You're making me work today.
Sorry.
I love it. No, it's great. Okay, so one belief that I really had to shift in order to hit my higher income goals was that specific amount that I wanted to hit wasn't really that much of a big deal.
Mm. hmm
Right. So I needed to normalize it, because if I don't normalize it, then it's always going to be up there. It's always going to be something in the future. It's always going to be something that I'm working towards. And I needed to bring it back down to my level and be like, this isn't actually a lot of money, you know? And I
Right.
think I mean, for some people it's easier than others, right? Because for some people, they're already surrounded by people who are making $50,000 months every single month, right? For
Yeah.
others, though, it's just like you also have to be really careful with who you're speaking to about what it is that you want to do with your business, because subconsciously they're going to start putting some stuff into your brain where it's just like, oh, that's too much, right?
hmm
So
hmm
that's, for me, it always was, that's actually not a big deal. If I can say that a $50,000 month is not a big deal, I'm more likely to work towards it, not be afraid of it, or not make it out to be something that like I put a lot of pressure on. If I'm like $50,000 a month is a bare minimum, I'm so much more likely to hit it because then I destigmatize anything that I believe around like having something that's kind of too grandiose for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Just normalizing it. Absolutely. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's kind of like versus the, putting your ideal man on a pedestal, right?
right. That's what I was thinking. Any manifestation, right? Anything in life, it's like making it equal, like it's not something natural, not out of reach. So that makes perfect sense.
Yes.
Um, so what do you think most coaches are doing wrong when trying to like attract their premium clients?
Ooh. I think that everyone has a different way of going at client attraction, and everyone has their own Achilles heel, so to speak. So everyone has their own thing that they need to work on. I would say though that a lot of my clients, from what I see, is they're not becoming an energetic match for who it is that they want to attract. And so what I mean by that is when we think about like, okay, who is this person that I want to attract? What are the standards that they set for themselves? Right. So, what are the standards? What are the boundaries that they already set for themselves? And let's say, for example, other areas of their lives. And how am I setting those standards for myself in my life currently? Right. And so, I'll give you an example. Like when I was working my 9 to 5, I couldn't have possibly attracted the caliber of clients that I'm attracting right now. And that's because I didn't have high standards for myself back then.
Mm,
I didn't have the standards for myself where I was like, I'm worthy, right? I'm
right.
deserving. And it's not just something that you see in business, and it's not just like going out there and putting really great messaging out there. It's also, how do I let my mom treat me? How do I let my sibling treat me? Right?
Mhm,
How am I standing up for myself? How am I placing boundaries around my business, around my time? How am I letting my husband treat me? Let's say, for example.
mhm,
And it's those are all energetic attraction matches, right? Because if you're not an energetic match for what it is that you want in a client, it's going to take you a lot longer to try and get them. And so that's one of the biggest things that I see is that one quote that I really love is the way that you do one thing is the way that you do everything.
mhm.
And so it's all about examining like how in other areas of my life am I giving away my power, or am I not setting a really high standard for myself that I know that my ideal client is also setting for themselves? And how can I train myself to set a higher standard for myself so that I can attract the thing that I want to attract?
Yeah, so with that, and I have two follow-up questions with that. So the one is, how do you shift from, I guess, like this made me think about, how do you shift from like chasing versus like you're attracting those aligned who are ready to pay?
Okay, this is a great one. And I think that in business, you're always going to do some level of chasing. And I
Mhm,
think this is a really important thing to understand, especially within the manifestation world, is a lot of people think like, oh no, I just need to sit, right? And I
mhm.
need like people to come to me. And of course, you know this. You have like a whole bunch of YouTube subscribers. You have a really successful foundation to your business, right? So you're already doing things, right? So some people could consider that chasing, right? It's just like, oh, well, I'm trying to post YouTube videos and therefore
Yeah,
that's chasing, right? So
sure.
it all depends on what you view as chasing.
Interesting. The semantics behind, yeah, semantics. Yeah, like for what, yeah, connotation versus denotation. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Exactly. Because if you're considering like some people only consider chasing, like when you're hunting someone down after they get on a sales call with you, when you're just like, "Oh, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready?" Right?
Mhm,
Versus other people consider chasing as like, "Oh, well, sending someone a DM," right? But
mhm,
in business, you're doing some sort like you're hunting. You know,
mhm,
you are hunting. You're hunting all the time, whether it's through content, whether it's through relationship building in the DMs, whether it's through Facebook ads. If you're doing Facebook ads, you're also chasing, right?
yeah.
So it's the semantics of it. And so when you can understand for yourself, what is the energy that feels like chasing to me? And what is the energy that feels like attracting to me? I think that that's a lot healthier versus like setting a universal standard for what's chasing and what's attracting, because only you will know that area for yourself. And so for myself, for example, for a very long time in my business, I was doing cold DMs because cold DMs for me wasn't chasing anyone. It was just being like, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I do. Right. For me, that wasn't considered chasing. And I was actually attracting really high caliber, high quality clients because they loved that. They loved just having someone pop up into their inbox and be like, hey, this is what I do. They got along with me. They got on a call. They became a client. Right.
Yeah.
But other people won't think that. And so it really depends on your own unique energy that you have inside of yourself, where you get to ask yourself, what feels ick to me? What feels
Mhm.
like chasing to me?
Mhm.
And then of course working with a mentor and understanding, like, is there a way that you can get around that? Or is it a belief system that you need to shift? Does that help?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So I guess I don't know if this, so if you were to look at messaging, so what messaging mistakes do you see a lot of entrepreneurs making that instantly you think might repel clients or ideal clients, I guess?
Yes. Okay. There's so many. So one
Okay.
is being way too salesy. When you're way too salesy right from the get-go and all of your posts are promotional and they're all just like, join my program, like my 3-month program has this amount of calls in it or something. Like no one really cares about that kind of stuff, right? And
Okay.
so that's gonna really scare people away because it's almost like you're telling people about something that they don't really actually care a lot about, because what your ideal client wants is a transformation from you, right?
Mhm.
So that's one really big way that I see people potentially like scaring ideal clients away. Another thing is not being specific enough with who it is that you're targeting and taking too much for granted. I find is really big. So taking too much for granted in terms of what I see people doing is like they'll just do like a Canva post with like, carousel with like a few different slides and they're hiding. And I think the reason why a lot of people are hiding is because they're like, okay, well, if I just do a little bit of effort, but I don't put all of my effort into it, if I don't succeed, it's okay because I didn't give it my all. And sometimes we don't even realize that we're doing that. We're
Mhm.
doing it subconsciously because we're afraid of failing and we're afraid of like putting all of our effort into it. And so it's only when I see clients that are just like, I'm just going all in. I'm giving this my all. I'm putting all of my effort into this. I'm asking God or the universe to be like, hey, like I'm a vessel for this thing and this message, and I'm going to be using it. And you just kind of like, you have 2 feet in essentially. So you're in energetically, you're in terms of like the content that you create, you expose yourself. That's when you really start to become that energetic match and you start to like have people want to hear from you, because it's not just about, you doing 5 carousels. It's about the magnetism that your content brings with it and how much you truly and deeply care about your cause, if that makes sense. So,
Mhm.
to answer your question, I think that there's so many different ways that people kind of like sell themselves out, so to speak, in terms of not going all in. But
Mhm.
those are just a few examples. So, like, being too salesy too quickly. And a lot of it mainly comes from not wanting to do 110% effort, not because they want to be lazy, but it's almost like a protection mechanism. Because if they do 110% effort, and they don't succeed, then it just, well, then it really, really shows to them that like they couldn't succeed at all. And so they might as well just like go halfway in versus go all the way in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So kind of with all that, I have a question. So like I don't know if there's different platforms if you would suggest like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, if you should just make one video. This is kind of a multi-layered question
Mm.
because I was looking at TikTok and um there was somebody saying on there, like, you need to be like, you're FaceTiming your friends, right? And I was like, okay, if you're FaceTiming your friends to grow on TikTok, is that necessarily the same thing when you go to Instagram or YouTube? And how, if that is the case, then how do you also be the authority versus, being relatable? Maybe that's actually what it's all like encompassing. How do you still be authoritative and, have it, but people would be able to relate to you and like you're their best friend?
I love this question. Yeah. And so I think we always have to proceed with a level of caution with the amount of advice that we get online, because some of it is just not good for your specific niche, right? And so
Sure.
with high ticket clients, You want to be relatable in that you want to share your story with people, but you don't necessarily want to be the girl next door. One of the things that I always say is that people are going to come to their best friend to vent, but they're going to know that with their coach they can't vent because they know that they want their coach to show leadership. And so if you want to be the best friend, that's kind of like an influencer, right? The influencer best friend is going to be like, "Hey, like look at this $30 product that I really really love that really helps me with my skin." But the coach is going to be like, "Hey, I see you doing this specific thing over and over and over again. It's time to ditch it. Here's how I ditched it myself. Here's how I was once in your shoes." And so you're
Mhm.
creating relatability there, but you're not friend zoning yourself because you're not getting yourself onto their level because you're above their level. With the thing that you're trying to help them with, you're always going to be above their level. That's what they're hiring you for, right? If you're never above their level, it's like I said with the venting, right? Your friend is going to come to you and vent about their husband or come to vent to you about their ex-boyfriend, but they're not going to vent to their coach. They're not going to expect their coach to just listen to their venting. They're going to come to their coach because they want solutions because they see that their coach has a higher amount of knowledge and a greater perception of their issue that their friend can't have. And so that's kind of how you want to position yourself. You want to position yourself as, yes, I know more than you, but I'm also human too. And I've been through the same pain that you've been through, but probably not at the same time as you're going through it right now.
That makes sense. It kind of reminds me when I was a teacher, I had the authority, I was authority at teaching high school. But I still like I was knowledgeable. So, they could there's just like it's kind of the same thing, that analogy. It reminds me of that.
Exactly. Yeah. As long as you use both of those things in tandem, that's perfect. I mean, and that's the thing. Maybe the person on TikTok who was talking about that, maybe they're more of an influencer who's trying to get you
Yeah.
better views and more followers, but that's not high ticket coaching. Right. And so we want to make sure that like high ticket coaching is always you need to be the authority. You need to present yourself as someone who's superior in the specific subject that they want to learn from you in.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So, what was your biggest personal shadow that showed up in business and how did you work through it?
I really like your questions, Meg. I love the manifestation-y aspect of all of them.
Thank you.
Everyone who's listening, Meg is a manifestation coach. So this is right up her alley. This is perfect. Okay, so hopefully this answers it. But let me know if it does or
Okay.
doesn't. I think that a big block for me for a really long time was have you ever heard of the triangle? Um, so the perpetrator, the defender, and the rescuer? No, the perpetrator, the victim, and the rescuer. Have you heard
Um,
drama
no, I
triangle?
mean, no, I haven't, but I love that.
Okay. Yeah. So a lot of relationship dynamics always fit in this. So there's the perpetrator, the victim, and the rescuer. And most people fall into one category for most of their relationships, not all of the time, but most of the time, generally speaking, some people are either one of these, right? So they're
Mhm.
either the person who instigates arguments or the person who always feels like the victim or the person who always feels like they need to rescue people. And
Okay.
one of my biggest blocks is for my whole life, I feel like I've been a rescuer.
Mhm.
And so I've just wanted to save people. And so I'm constantly trying to save people. I'm kind of like I'm the
Mhm.
person who wants the harmony, the person who wants the peace. And so what that created, I mean, it sounds like saviorism, right? It sounds like, "Oh, I'm such a great person," or whatever, but it actually creates a really really big block, especially when it comes to business. And the reason for that block is you enable people. And so if all you want to do is save people and all if you want to do is help people, and if you think that helping and saving people is just like giving them more and rescuing them, then you're never actually having them be challenged to their own greatness because you can't save people. People need to save themselves.
Oh, wow, interesting.
Yeah. And so for a really long time in my life, I was just kind of like, well, I'm going to save people. And I started noticing it, I think about a few years ago while I was scaling my business, because then, what got you there, what got you here can't get you there, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Yeah.
And for me, what I realized is I was even doing it when I was hiring people. So when I was hiring people on my team, it wasn't who's an A-list player for me. It was always who can I help? Who am I
Yes.
going to give a really great opportunity for? right?
Mhm.
Versus my coaches were like, why can't you have an A-list player, Sarah? Why can't you hire someone for their skills and abilities? Why can't you hire someone who's not a work in progress? Essentially, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
why are you continuously finding people that you can fix and
Mhm.
finding people that you're going to mold into this thing? And as
Mhm.
I was going through it, I realized that that's exactly what I was doing over and over and over again with clients, with team members. And when you do it with clients, you're not having them take on their own personal responsibility.
Wow.
And you're not actually allowing them to grow because they're just thinking that you're going to swoop in and save them all the time. And so it was a really big block for me where I was just like, nope, I'm not hiring fixer uppers anymore. Right? And I'm allowing other people to do their own work and sit in their own discomfort. And that was a really, really big block because it sounds so appealing, right? It
Mhm.
sounds so appealing to be like, I'm the person who likes fixing things, right?
Yeah.
I'm the person who likes rescuing people. And it also sounds almost morally superior to say that as well, to be honest, right? But it's
Mhm.
not because you're not holding people accountable and you're not allowing people to grow themselves. You think that you're the answer to their prayers, but you're not the answer to their prayers. They are the answer to their own prayers. And so I really needed to rework that inside of myself and have other people have their own accountability. And when initially when you do that, it really hurts, right? It's something that's very different. But over time, when people get used to it, they you'll see that they mirror that energy for you as well. So they'll show up in the way that you allow them to show up for themselves as well.
That's really interesting. So that would be, I could relate to making feeling that uncomfortableness. So how do you hold people accountable? How did you make that shift? And do you do that with clients too, or is it just when you say you're hiring coaches or whomever to work for you?
Anyone, it's anyone now. I just allow people to sit in their discomfort. And so
Mm,
it's a difference between, seeing that someone's really struggling and trying to go in and be like, "Oh, but it's okay." Or
yeah,
being like, they're going to realize that it's okay on their own, but if I let them realize it, they're going to do the work themselves versus me trying to do the work for them. And
yeah,
that's a really hard thing to do. And at times, because we're women as well, and I think a lot of us were raised in a way where we need to go rescue people and we need to constantly be the nurturer. But if we can help people sit in their own discomfort, it really helps them to understand like what they need to do in order to save themselves.
yeah.
And really empowering. And so I would say one of the biggest ways that I've done that is rather than me just constantly going in and, let's say for example, if your mom, like if she's really offended by something that you said and you're always
Mhm.
going in and being like, "Oh, okay, mom, I understand that you're really upset." And if one day you're just like, "Nope, I'm going to let her do that," like I'm going to let her sit in her discomfort, she's not going to do that to you again because you didn't enable her this time. And so the
Mhm.
next time that this situation happens, she's going to learn from the behavior that you've now displayed to her. So that's what I had to do is I had to allow myself to sit in that uncomfortable feeling of having someone else be uncomfortable without me trying to run out and fix them.
Wow, that's a great answer. That's a really great answer. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
So,
welcome.
so does that tie into well, I don't know which question I want to ask next, but does that tie into if someone's going to be successful as one of your clients or not? Are you able to read that or assess that situation if someone's going to fall into one of those categories or be victim, or do you have any like thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that I don't think that fawning, so that's that a little bit of that is actually the trauma response fawning, right?
Mhm.
So it's a little
Yeah.
bit of it is if I just please everyone else around me, if I just take care of everyone else around me, then everything's going to be great, right?
Right.
So then you end up being exhausted because you're constantly pleasing everyone else and you're never pleasing yourself, right? That
Right.
actually helps you in business in a way. It could help you be successful.
Mhm.
Um because people like being pleased, right? Like
Mhm.
people like other people taking care of them. But it won't allow you to scale because you're just emotionally exhausted with trying to manage a whole bunch of other people's emotions, right? So I would say it actually that works in people's favor in the beginning, but it makes you have no boundaries. Because then
Mhm.
once people understand, oh, if I can get away with this one thing, then they're going to try to get away with another thing. And then it just like they just keep on chipping on your boundaries over and over and over again. If you're not
Mhm.
teaching other people how you want to be treated, and then you're not teaching other people like a mirror in terms of expectations of how to behave. And so um, I find that with some of my clients, it does help them in the beginning because it helps them get clients, but not sometimes it's not the best clients that you end up getting because it's the clients who are used to that type of behavior as well. And so over time, if you want to scale, you can no longer um, attempt to manage everyone else's emotions. What I do see in terms of answering your question as well, in terms of like who does the best and does this behavior work long term for success? Is what I see is that's not necessarily a marker for success as much as just having a positive attitude and just constantly focusing on like, hey, this is working for me.
Mhm.
So I think that the way that we people please doesn't necessarily have that much a marker on success in the beginning. It's mainly like, what is my attitude towards how I perceive my growth, essentially. If I have an attitude towards my growth where I'm always looking at the bright side, I'm so much more likely to succeed versus having an attitude of nothing is working, nothing is working.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. So back to, I was going to ask you before, when you're journaling, what are you journaling about? Like when you say if you have a goal, like are you journaling like in the future, or how you feel, or what does this version of me think? Like what are you journaling?
Yeah. I'm mainly journaling around what is the version of myself in the future? What is she doing? How is she feeling that I'm not doing and feeling right now?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's one of the biggest things. And I really try to feel into her. I really try to like embody her and just ask myself, like, okay, what does it feel like to be her? A lot of the times I'll go for walks on the beach and I'll be like, okay, this is me. I'm making this much more money, or I'm this is my success. How am I different? What am I embodying? What is it that I'm not seeing right now that I need to see there? What am I thinking about the situation that I'm pressed with right now? What am I thinking in the future that I'm not thinking now? And so I'd start to journal around those things. That's like one of the biggest things I would say. It's all a process of who you're becoming and what you understand that you need to let go of in order to step into a bigger version of yourself.
So do you feel like it's always like the same thing, or is it like the onion? Like you get to this level as a common theme, or is it like something else every single time you have a different goal? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's an onion.
Yeah.
So it is sometimes it is a different thing, but so a lot of the times it will be different things that you need to give up because at different so like I said with boundaries, right? You can get to six figures by having people walk all over your boundaries, but then as soon as you want to go from 100K to 200K and you want to double your client load, your nervous system cannot no longer deal with that amount of emotional manipulation, right?
Yeah.
And so then you have to give that up, right? But maybe once you give that up, then you don't have to give that up again. What I found personally, the one thing that kind of always keeps on coming back to me is a fear of other people's jealousy. And
Fear of
so,
other people's jealousy. Uh-huh. Yeah.
yeah, like, what are other people going to think of me? Or like, what is this specific person going to think of me if I make more money or if I
Hmm.
get successful? It's always this like fear of being in the spotlight. And it comes up in so many different ways. And so you peel the onion, right, with all these different things. But then when you start thinking about a new issue or a new block that you have. So what I find is once you start to like peel the onion and dissect it, that one block is the same block that you've been working on forever. And it's usually just like it's a part of your identity, right? It was a part of your
Right.
child, something that it's always within you. And so it's always something that you're working towards um, getting better at, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So, like, when you're giving advice to people, or like kind of go on the accountability and the boundaries and all the stuff that we've been kind of talking about, do you ever find like I'm gonna try to word this, like your client doesn't want to hear something, like they just like how do you navigate? I guess if somebody's coming to you and they're like, I want to make 100K. but you know that they have all these blocks and they're not willing to really see that. Like, does a people pleaser is kind of multi-layered. So does a people pleaser keep coming up, or have you worked through that, or how do you navigate that situation if they're not even aware of it at the time without like, if there's like, I just want this quick fix. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, you wanna first, like, what I like to do as well is I like for them to see the things, but they also need to accept them. And so they can seeing something is one thing, but accepting it and accepting the fact that they need to work on it is something entirely different. Are they ready
Mhm,
to accept it? Are they ready to work on it? And so if they're
mhm,
not ready to accept it and ready to work on it, then we need to start with something smaller, right? And
mhm,
so we need to start with something that's like that they can see. So maybe they want to go from, 10 to 100K a month, but maybe we need to start from the 10 to 20K. And we need to deal with the blocks and the resistance there that they can see. So the one step ahead of them. Because I might be able to see the 10 steps, but if they can't see them yet, then we need to like work slowly on each
mhm,
one um,
mhm.
until we get there. But yeah, I think it's one thing to say something to a client, but it's another thing for them to experience it and accept it as truth themselves. And sometimes that just takes longer.
I wonder why. Do you know why?
I think that we need to it's kind of like, when people need to break up with someone. You
Yeah.
see it, right? But you're not
Uh-huh.
willing to accept it because everyone has their certain threshold of what it is that they allow themselves to put up with. And so we all have the certain amount of what we allow ourselves to put up with let's say for example spouses or partners, but then it's also we all have a certain level of what we allow ourselves to put up with in terms of our own bullshit. Right?
Ah,
And
mhm.
so a lot of the times we can't see it because we need to go through that over and over and over again. And if we've never thought that it was a bad thing, especially if it was something that was framed to us as good. So once again, being the rescuer, if it's always been framed to you as good, then you're going to deny it in the beginning and you're going to say, "No, that's actually something that's helped me." Until you get to a point where, like you're growing so much that you're so exhausted that you can no longer do that. And so I think it's just coming to terms with it and really seeing you need to see and you need to be aware of how it limits you. And a lot of the times we just don't have that ability when we first find out about it.
That makes sense.
It's through
Um,
experience, really. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So I guess I just have maybe 2 or 3 more questions, if that's okay?
Let's do two more.
Okay. Um, these kind of can go together. So how do you personally navigate trusting something's going to show up for you versus like, forcing it, or what do you do with fear when it comes up, I guess?
Uh, yeah. And it's so hard. I love this question because it's something that we all go through.
Mhm.
And trusting it and trusting that it's going to happen for you is so difficult. And one thing that I love and also hate at the same time is the whole idea that you can manifest anything. You just don't know your time frame. And none of us know the time frame and we can't put a time frame on things. And I think that that's the really frustrating part. One thing that I've loved listening to in terms of manifestation and just really trusting that something is going to come to you is do you know Brooke Castillo from
No.
the Life Coach School? So she has a podcast. It's called the Life Coach School. I think her podcast is also called the Life Coach School, but Brooke Castillo,
Okay.
really, really great human. And one thing that I really love that she says is, there isn't better than here. So I need to love here in order for me to even find myself there. Because if all I'm doing is trying to chase there, then once I get there, I'm not going to love it either. I need to love where I'm at first. I need to enjoy the process. I need to like the experience that I'm at right now. And so she says all the time, I think when I was listening to her podcast, I think her goal was to hit 100 million in sales. And so she was like, I'm at 10 million. I'm happy. But I also know that like I'm not going to be happier there. I'm happy where I am right now. I'm happy and whole where I am. And another thing that I've also found that is also incredibly frustrating is the minute that I surrender and accept the fact that it possibly can't happen is the minute that it starts happening. So it's just like, you
Resistance.
know,
Uh-huh.
like I try and I try and I try and I'm like, oh, this isn't happening. Oh my goodness, this is happening. And I'm like, you know what? This is not going to happen, whatever. Or if it does happen, I can no longer control it. I'm just going to like let it go. And then all of a sudden the client comes, or then all of a sudden, you get your calls booked or then all of a sudden the idea comes to you because you need to surrender and you need to understand that it's not just you who's controlling it, right?
Right.
It's you're in co-creation mode.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, I guess my last question for you, thank you for answering all those, is how do you balance? Because one of the things that I really find a hard time is balancing, having my spouse as well as being a mom, as well as being a business owner. I feel like, especially with my kids, sometimes I feel like wearing all those hats, I don't have enough time. So, how do you personally balance all that?
Yeah, yeah. It is. It's a hard thing to do for sure. And I don't think that anyone's ever going to do it perfectly. And everyone has their own version of like, like the best way that we can do it. I think that one thing that I really make sure that I have is an identity outside of my house. So identity outside of like wife and mother. Because if I can carry on that identity and if I can utilize my strengths and my gifts through that new identity, I think that that really helps me to also embody it more. And
Mhm.
so let's say, for example, I'll go for my walks or I'll go to the gym or I'll just be, and if I'm at the beach, like I'll ask my husband, I'll be like, I'm just going to go, for 30 minutes and I'm just going to go swimming on my own. Right. And I make
Right.
sure that in those specific circumstances that I'm embodying the identity of the business owner. Right. And then that moment, I'm no longer thinking about all of these other things that are going on in my life. I'm thinking about business. I'm thinking about vision. I'm thinking about legacy. And I'm using that time to really co-create and also like develop my skill sets in terms of like, okay, what's the vision? What is the next thing that I need to focus on? And I need to have me personally, I need to have my own time to experience that versus trying
Yeah.
to shuffle my time all the time. So for
Mhm.
you, it could be, like going to the coffee shop and being like, okay, mama's going to go to the coffee shop for, 30 minutes. And your coffee shop time is your visioning time. It's your mapping, your vision mapping time. Um,
Mhm.
that's what I would say. I need to get myself into a new environment.
Okay, mine's probably walking.
Good. Yeah, that's a new environment. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's your visionary time. So you draw your shoulders down your back, open up your chest, and you're like, okay, what's
Yeah.
here for me? Right. Because that gives you a position of power.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, thank you so much for answering all those questions. I really appreciate it.
That's awesome. Yeah. So thank you so much for asking all of them too. I feel like this was a really good one in terms of like energetics, which is really awesome. So we will all have a copy of this. And Meg, before you leave, where can everyone find you?
They can go to my YouTube channel or to my website. So that's transcendreality.co for the website and Manifest with Megan on the YouTube.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here,
Thank
Meg.
you. All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Thanks for listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show. If you enjoy our show and would like the show notes and free goodies about how to grow your online coaching business, head over to sarajloureiro.com for more information. We hope you'll tune in next time.